Hey guys, in this video we're going to be starting 7D.1. Our mastery learning objective is I can solve for the missing side lengths of a right triangle by setting up a trigonometric equation. So one thing that we need to do before we even get started here is to make sure that your calculator is in the right mode. So the way that you make sure of that is you're going to look at your calculator and it's going to tell you over here, I don't know if you can see my pointer, but like in the top right corner, it needs to say degree, and unfortunately ours says RAD, which means radian mode, and we need to be in degree mode. So the way we change that, and again, always triple check your calculators, is we go to our home screen, we're gonna go to settings, you wanna go to document settings, and then in the second option where it says angle, you wanna make sure this is in degree mode, all right? Now, when you scroll down all the way down to the bottom, you wanna make sure you make this the default, and not click OK. So you want to click Make Default, and then it's going to say Apply, blah, 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 blah. OK. So now, when we go to our calculator, we should see degree up here in the top left corner. OK? So one way to make sure is that we're going to substitute some of these values to make sure that we're all in the right mode. And if you're getting opposite answers than me, then make sure that you check your calculator. Okay, so the first thing is we want to find the sine of 45 degrees. One thing to remember is that trig ratios and inverse trig ratios can be found using the trig button. Our trig button is right next to the 7 on our calculator. So if I'm trying to find the sine of 45, I'm going to click trig, right, the button next to the 7. I see my sine is right there. I'm going to type in 45, click enter, and it's going to give me this value. For our sake, I'm just going to keep our decimals to just 2 decimal places, so 0.71. I want to find the cosine of 82, so I'm going to click trig again, do cosine, type in 82, enter, and this is going to give me 0.14. Tangent of 53, tangent 53. is going to give me 1.33. All right, so those are going to be our angle measures, right? So they gave us our degree, and we're trying to simplify that. So with this section, what we have here is we have our right triangle, we have an angle, right, our given angle, and we're going to try to find a missing side. The way that we do that is we have to take the inverse of an angle. So let's set up our first example. So the first thing is start off with what we know. Well, we know that this is our given angle. This is my theta. And from that angle, I want to label the sides of my triangle. So from that angle, this is my opposite side. Across from the 90-degree angle is always the hypotenuse, which is going to leave this side here to be the adjacent side. So the only sides that I have are going to be my adjacent side, and technically I'm missing this value, which is what I'm looking for. So I have my adjacent and my opposite side. So the way that we think about this is write our trig ratios down. What's the only trig ratio that has opposite and adjacent? So remember, if we write SOHCAHTOA up here, the only one that uses O and A would be tangent. So I want to set up the tangent of theta. That equals our opposite over our adjacent. So now I'm going to substitute what I do know, right? The only trig ratio that uses O and A is tangent. So I'm going to go ahead and substitute what I know. Tangent. I do know what my angle is, right? My angle is 22 degrees. My opposite, I do not know what that is, so I'm going to let that be x. And my A was my adjacent side, which is 5. Now I want to solve for my x. So right now, this means divide by 5. So the opposite of dividing by 5 is to multiply by 5. And whatever I do to one side, I must do to the other side. So right now, I'm going to have 5 times the tangent of 22 degrees is going to equal my x. Is x by itself? Yes, it is. So I'm actually just going to put this whole thing in my calculator. So my calculator, I'm going to type 5 times I want to write the tangent of 22. Click enter, and it gives me my answer. Therefore, 2 decimals, so this would just be 0.2, is going to equal my x, right? That is going to be my missing side length over here. Okay, looking at example number 2. Again, we started off with what we know. We know that this is my angle, and I want to label my triangle based off of my given angle. So that means that this is my opposite side, which I don't know. So this is what I'm going to be labeling as x. We know across from that 90-degree angles is my hypotenuse. So the only trig ratio that's going to allow me to set up a trig ratio based off of what I have, so O and H, would be sine. Sine is the only one that uses O and H. So the sine of theta equals our opposite over our hypotenuse. Go ahead and substitute what we know. Well, sine of whatever angle we have, which ours is 74, is going to equal the opposite, which is x, over our hypotenuse, which is 12. So again, same idea. I want to isolate my x. That's my whole goal, is to find our missing variable. Right now I'm dividing by 12. The opposite of dividing by 12 is to multiply by 12. So multiply by 12 is going to give me x equaling 12 times, sine, I don't know what that was, sorry. Sine, so go ahead and type that into your calculator. I'm going to see if I can fix that. I don't like the way that looked. So that's what I'm going to do. So 12 times sine of 74 is going to equal 11.53, but rounding to 1 decimal, or 2 decimals, 11.54. And that's my x value, and that is what my missing side would be over here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and scroll down looking at our other examples here. Example number 3, again, label what we have. So from my given angle, this would be my opposite side, this would be my hypotenuse, and this is my adjacent side. So right now, the only two things I have are my adjacent and my hypotenuse. So A and H is going to be our cosine, right? Because cosine of theta equals our adjacent over our hypotenuse. So therefore, cosine of 37 is going to equal 11 over x. All right, well now I want to get my x by itself. So right now I see that I am dividing by x. The only other thing, I want to move my x over to the other side because I don't want to be dividing by x. So I'm going to multiply by x on both sides. So that means on my left side, I have x times the cosine of 37 is going to equal 11. However, my x is not by itself. I'm still multiplying by this cosine of 37. So the opposite of multiplying would be dividing. So I'm actually going to divide by the cosine of 37 on both sides, right? Because whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other side. Treating basically the cosine or tangent or sine of whatever you have just as like a whole term together. So this is going to equal, x equals 11 divided by the cosine of 37. And that is exactly how we're going to type it into our calculator. So 11 divided by the cosine of 37. And this is going to give us 13.77. All right, so that is my answer for x. Again, when we do, solving for our missing sides, we're looking for side lengths. So they're not going to have degrees. If our sides have any type of measurement, then obviously include that in your answer. All right, last example over here. According to my given angle, this is my opposite side. This is across from the 90, so this is my hypotenuse, which would make this an x, because I do not know what that is. The only trig ratio that uses O and H is sine. So I'm going to use the sine of theta equals O over H, and substitute what I know. So sine of 36 is going to equal opposite, which is 7. Our hypotenuse is x. I want to solve for x, so again, doing the opposite operation. So this is dividing by x, the opposite would be multiply by x. Whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other side. So it's going to be x times the sine of 36 is going to equal 7. This is multiplying. To get my x by itself, I must do the opposite, which is divide by the sine of 36. And whatever I do to one side, I must do to the other side. So therefore, my final answer is going to be x equals 7 divided by sine of 36. I do want to simplify that, so I'm going to put that in my calculator here. 7 divided by the sine of 36 is going to be 11.909, so that would be 11.91. All right, so biggest thing is remembering our trig ratio, starting off with what you have, what trig ratio you're going to use, substitute what you know, and then solve for x. All right, good luck, guys.